Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us so late if you're on the East Coast, and probably perfectly at happy hour time if you're on the West Coast. My name is Christina. I'm the founder of Amplify Her Voice, and we're an organization dedicated to promoting gender equality in the music industry. We wanted to make this event so, during a really tough time for the music industry in particular, we wanted to, connect our communities. And give everyone an option, or at least an opportunity, to network and learn from people who are actively in the music industry and make connections. Unfortunately, we did get a ton more responses than we originally anticipated. So this is why it's switched to a panel type situation. But going forward, we'll definitely have a lot more opportunities to actually connect more, network, and really give you that opportunity to make really strong personable connections. Shelby, do you want to talk a little about Girls Behind the Rock Show?
Yes. Hi, how are you all? I'm Shelby. I'm the founder of Girls Behind the Rock Show. Some of you may already know our organization from the Facebook group. I know I see, like I said, when this started, a lot of familiar faces, so it's nice to see a lot of you in here tonight. We are a nonprofit dedicated to amplifying young women. I just used the name of your organization, talk about mine. Okay, anyway, we are a nonprofit dedicated to helping young women and gender diverse people advance in the music industry. We've been around for about 5 years now. The Facebook group has been around about 4, which I'm sure is where a lot of you know us. That's where you know us from. It's been really fun. We've done a lot of live touring programs. Our Roadie for a Day program is probably our most popular thing we've done thus far. We did that on Warped Tour. We did a version of it on a national tour with Grandson, and we did it one other time with a third band. And then we have run just a bunch of different other types of internship opportunities and programs and things like that within those 5 years. And we're really proud to say that the Facebook group is now almost at 9,000 people, and that you who are in it utilize it. It's got like a 72% activity rate, and we get a lot of people who've gotten jobs and internships through it. So if you're not a part of it, please feel free to join it tonight. We're all very happy to have you here. And we are so excited to introduce some of our speakers. So I'm just going to run through their names really fast and then give a little bit of an intro. So we have Liz Mead here. We have Kathy Tra. Did I say that right?
You did.
I did. Great. We have Olivia Shalop and we have Katherine Hooper. And I am going to knock it over to Liv to kind of give her little introduction and spiel, and then we'll go from there.
Hi, everyone. I'm Olivia. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm a social media strategist and digital marketer. I am also the owner and founder of Amethyst Collab, which is another organization for women in music, and we put on panels with women in AR marketing and artist management. And currently I serve as digital lead for the rapper Trippie Redd and for another rapper, Kid Lee, who her first single dropped tonight with Quavo, so go check it out. I'll plug that later. But yeah, basically I run social media campaigns for these artists. I serve as their digital lead, which means I also handle like video engagements and things like that, which has taken quite a turn during COVID, but it's still fun. And my first job in the music industry was at a small label in DC called Car Park Records, where I worked as an intern with the artist Toro y Moi. I basically just kind of did general intern duties and then worked my way into like a social media specialization from there. And then I worked at Maverick Management, ICM Partners, and now I work directly with artists and labels as like a direct part of their team. And I would say my day-to-day at my current position is very much on my phone, very social media, helping artists run their content, things like that. I work very, very directly with the artists, which is my favorite part of the job. So if you love working with artists, social media strategy is a great route to go, especially if you love social media too. And my advice to anybody in the music industry or aspiring to be in the music industry would be to not doubt yourself. Don't let imposter syndrome get the best of you. To dive right into whatever you want to do. A pivotal moment in my career was when I was working under Maverick Management and I got the opportunity on the side to work for Nipsey Hussle's digital media team. And I ended up taking over his nonprofit social media. And that was really my first like digital lead position in the industry. And I was only, I think, 19 or 20. So just going for what you want can really take you far, and not doubting your abilities. And that's pretty much it for me.
Woo! Thank you so much, Olivia. I know a lot of people are super interested in marketing. It was our second most requested, so I really think people appreciate it tonight. If we want to take it over to Katherine Hooper of AG to talk about her work with brand partnerships. Oh, hold up, Katherine, you're muted. There we go.
Hi, sorry about that. I accidentally muted myself earlier. Hey everyone, I am Katherine Hooper, and I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, currently reside in Los Angeles. And as Christina said, I work over at AEG, present specifically in partnerships and sponsorships on our activation team. And so just for anyone who's like, what does that even mean? So I am part of the team that once for festivals specifically, like once there's a deal in place, like the salespeople sell a deal for the festivals, there's a team that actually is responsible for fulfilling everything, all the deliverables that are in those contracts, and doing lots of like client services, account management type things. So I work on that team. Prior to COVID, because obviously there haven't been any festivals in 2020. But prior to COVID, we did upwards of 12 or so festivals every year, and was managing, gosh, if I say between all the festivals, probably like 60 or so different clients. A lot of times they were like all at the same time, because we would have festivals that would kind of overlap and everything like that. I went to University of Maryland and I studied music, and also got a double major in communication as well. So I kind of like came from things as kind of a performer, not kind of, but a performer. I like make the joke that I was a musician in a past life. I'm a classically trained flutist, and decided that I didn't want to pursue a career playing, but kind of like fell into the event space. And essentially like how I got into partnerships was, I wouldn't say like a fluke, but it was kind of one of those things where I did a whole bunch of different types of jobs and ended up in partnerships. Like it was literally, I guess, like a culmination of everything that I've ever done. So I worked at a venue in Baltimore called Ram's Head Live, like right after I graduated from college. I did almost every job you could do in a venue. I was doing like access control, I did security, I did street team, I sold merch. And I was like, oh my God, I love like being at concerts all the time and just being able to like see how people react to the music and everything like that. And so like definitely knew that I wanted to stay in the live space, but didn't know what that was going to look like. And I eventually moved out here to California, where I've been for the last 9.5 years. And that is kind of where I started to find out more about like brand partnerships and everything like that. I got to go to Austin and work at Fader Fort. I worked with Converse and did like influencer seeding, and was just like, oh, this whole like brand thing, I guess it is something like brands come in to different festivals, different events, and really work themselves into the fabric of an event. And that's a job that you can have. And so that is eventually how I ended up at my job, was just doing a lot of different jobs basically. So that would be my piece of advice for people starting out, is like, if you don't know specifically what you want to do in the music industry, but you really like music, that you have some skills that are probably going to be transferable to multiple segments of the industry, like take that internship, take that one-off like gig, take that PA gig, take that whatever opportunity comes up, and just go in being open to learning and growing your skills and networking and showing people that you're someone who's teachable and that you're someone who's pleasant to be around. So I think those are the two most important things when you're just working through the industry, and honestly in life in general, like be a good person, be good to work around, and be teachable.
Definitely. I think Shelby wanted to ask a couple follow-up questions.
Okay. I
Shoot.
might have.
Yes. Well, I wanted to, before we moved on to our next speakers, specifically because both of you kind of work in a space that would be considered, you know, more marketing based, traditional. Obviously, Olivia does a little bit more social media, but what has been like your biggest pivot moment since the pandemic started?
I can go first. I
Yeah.
would say our biggest pivot moment would be obviously like our whole slate of festivals for the most part didn't happen. I think we literally did one festival in February, and then nothing else happened for the rest of the year. So I think our biggest pivot moment was figuring out how some of those like huge milestones, specifically with our desert festivals, how we were still going to like celebrate those and still have community around them. With Coachella and Stagecoach specifically, they're very much like destination festivals and festivals that people are either really excited about going to for the first time or ones where they're like coming back again and again over the years. So we did a huge amount of just like digital programming around the Coachella documentary, which is on YouTube. I'm gonna plug that real quick. If y'all haven't watched it, it's on YouTube, and it's 20 Years in the Desert, really great documentary. And we did some events around that. And then we also partnered with SiriusXM and did something called Stage Couch. So there was a bunch of different like programming that was on SiriusXM's like country station, or one of their country stations rather, and then also some programming that we did just digitally, so like Twitter chats and also live streams on Instagram.
And Liv, what about you?
That's a great question, Shelby. I think so much of what I do is a pivot in like COVID times. Because as a digital manager, so the way I try to explain it is it's like a mix of social media and PR. So a lot of the things that we would normally do, like Tribby just dropped his album, Pegasus, landed at #2 on Billboard, little shout out. But we normally would do a tour around this, right? So instead, he's done a lot of video engagements. He did like a cooking show with Fuse, and we have a show coming out in the future, another digital show, surprise, surprise. And, you know, he did a lot of like video engagement that maybe normally would be more in-person events, like touring and just hosting more like live things with fans. So we've really had to pivot into the digital space and like lean into video content. He does a lot of Instagram lives. He loves like direct to fan type of engagement. And things like that. And then for this video that I worked on with Kid Lee and Quavo, we're doing a lot of, we did like a YouTube premiere and chatted with fans rather than doing like a live performance of the track, things like that. So really just leaning even harder into the digital space has been the biggest pivot in my field for sure.
Amazing. I love those answers so much. Yeah, and then I think we can introduce our two next panelists.
Yeah. So next up for media and PR, we have Liz Mead. She's the owner of 3 Brand Media, and I'm sure she has a ton to teach you on everything media and PR.
Oh, I think we're gonna have to go to Kathy because I think we really just lost Liz.
We lost Liz. Okay.
Oh, no.
On to the amazing Kathy. You might have heard of 1824, but so she does their social media. Kathy, do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, so I'm Kathy, and I am one of the marketing and social media reps on 1824. And 1824 is a creative solution team within Universal Music Group. And we focus on basically making this connection between artists and fans and just coming up with all different types of ways, whether it's PR, marketing, brand partnership. And it's just kind of an overarching like branch of a little bit of everything. I'm currently a senior at the University of Texas in Austin, so I'll be graduating this spring finally. And I am a major. I'm majoring in marketing, and I have a minor in communication studies. So that's kind of where I got my foot in the door. I always knew that like music was what I wanted to do. Maybe not exactly what, but I always had this passion for music, and that's just where exactly I wanted to go, but I had no idea how. And I think growing up in Texas, it was kind of like in my head, I was always like, well, like, how am I going to do anything music that's like for LA or New York? Like, how am I going to get there? But my first opportunity opportunity within music is this position that I'm in right now with 1824, and it's honestly changed my life. It's helped me like become more confident, more innovative, more fearless, and I've been able to really grow with the help of my team. So on the marketing side, I do a lot of like digital marketing campaigns for upcoming artists, whether it's coming up with these ideas that if you were to check out the 1824 Instagram page, a lot of our stuff is on there. Like with Duckworth, I worked really hand in hand with his team, and we partnered up with Homeboy Industries in LA, and we did like this Giving Tuesday campaign where fans were able to give money back to Homeboy Industry in order to help out the community. I also help out with the social media team with my co-lead Liv, who is amazing. And basically for that, we plan out the schedule for like social media, like what gets posted, what kind of content we want to see, what's going to really like stick out to this demographic, like the 18 to 24 demographic, kind of where with our name, like a little play on words. But so that's like a little bit of what I do day to day. It's a lot of sitting here on Zoom. This is kind of like where you'll see me every single day in meetings on my computer, like typing up stuff for whether it's like captions for social media or editing like things together, making graphics. I do a lot of that along with the rest of my team. And I think the biggest advice I had was kind of going back earlier, one of the other panelists says imposter syndrome. I had that major. Going into college, I was like, I'm a first generation student. I had no idea what I was doing. I was like, I'm just trying to pass my classes. And there were people who were like starting their own company, like doing consulting at like a freshman. And I was like, I just need to pass accounting. I don't understand accounting. Like that's all I want to do. And this job at 1824, it was about taking a risk. You know, I never had experience before it. And it was kind of like going in, I was like, well, how would I even like apply for this job? I've never had any experience. I don't really know anything. And I think as women, especially, like we take a look at like this job application and we're like, well, we don't exactly meet all the requirements or criteria. And then we decide not to do it and not to put ourselves out there. And I think that's like one of the biggest advice I can give is like, you have more knowledge than you really know. Like maybe you don't have the experience, but you have the knowledge, whether it's from your classes or like, you know, we intake the music, we intake the social media, the stuff we see, and we know what we want to see. So take that knowledge that you have yourself and apply it and like in any way that you can, whether it's with music or with like any other field or interest that you want. And I think that's something that really helped me be able to really step up and like kind of become more myself and become more confident in myself and the stuff I do.
Definitely. We had a quick question from Christina, not me. And it was, let me find it again. As a college student, how did you go about finding an opportunity like 1824? Was it through connections through school, or are there external opportunities, and how can one apply to 1824?
So personally for me, I actually, one of the old reps, I actually knew her from middle school, and she reached out. She was like, hey, we're looking for one in Austin. So I connected with her, and from there, that's how I personally got the job. But we have like listing, we're currently like looking for content creators. If you guys want to head over to our Instagram or our TikTok, those videos have exactly what you guys can like look into and kind of start applying. And also feel free to reach out to me, connect with me, and I can get you guys like some more info that way.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kathy. So we lost Liz. We're trying to get her back.
As we're waiting, you guys, please feel free to drop questions in the chat. We definitely want to see them. We're going to be going through. But I do think that to all of our panelists who are currently on, all of you a little bit touched on each of your experiences with this, but I definitely, and you've all talked a little bit about imposter syndrome, but I think I would want to go more into and just ask all of you, what has your experience or what have you witnessed as a woman? And since all of you are also women of color, as a women of color in the industry, that maybe other people don't have those experiences, or stuff that you could educate us on how you've progressed forward and maybe changes that you see or things that you still want to see done and all of that. And I would love to start with Katherine on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think one of the things that I experienced a lot that's more recent has just been like recent within the last like 5 or so years, is just been like people assuming that I only listen to certain types of music. As a Black woman, I think it just, with Black people in general, there's the assumption that like, okay, you must know everything there is to know about hip hop. You must know everything there is to know about R&B, like all those types of things. And I mean, I work on festivals that are literally every type of music. And like, even before I came into my job and I was freelancing, I was working on like electronic music festivals. I had worked at Fader for it. You literally hear every type of music that runs the spectrum. And so I think it's like, one, just important to not assume based off of someone's identity that they only are knowledgeable about certain types of music. And then also not to assume that they're not interested in knowing about them either. I think that it's a really valuable skill to, you know, be an expert maybe in one type of music, but don't completely be like, I don't know anything about country at all. Like, I didn't know a lot about country, but I knew that like, I liked the song structure of country. I like the way people tell stories in country music. And so that I use that to be like, let me find out about some of these artists that perform about Stagecoach so that I can actually like do my job better. So I would say that that was one, I guess, like obstacle that maybe isn't top of mind for a lot of people, but definitely is part of my lived experience and just navigating through the industry thus far.
I love that answer. I actually have a friend. She's a young Black woman who works around K-pop, and she has said the exact same thing to me multiple times. So that's a very real thing. That's amazing. Like, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course.
Liv, what about you?
I would say the biggest thing is like working in social media means that I have to be at a lot of like behind the scenes moments. And a lot of the times those are huge boys club, especially because I work like with a lot of men. You know, I'm hoping obviously to pivot more into more women clients, but the reality is a lot of the times men are given larger budgets by labels and are able to hire someone like me, whereas women's teams aren't. But a lot of the times like getting past that boys club or like having to almost like get myself approved by the boys who run these men's teams to be in like the behind the scenes type of rooms has definitely been the most frustrating experience for me. And I really wish, like, you know, social media, a lot of people think that it's a woman dominated field, but you would be surprised. Especially because social media for artists is very, very new. Like having a specific social media lead for an artist directly is a very new concept. So like I saw someone say in the chat, do we think that there's too many people in social media? And no, the opposite. Like it's a very needed position right now. So if you're thinking about getting into it, hit me up on Instagram. I'll chat with you about it. Like it's definitely needed. There's no shortage of people looking for women in these positions. So don't be dissuaded by the boys club, and especially me, because I do work in hip hop music and I do love hip hop music and want to stay in hip hop music. It's definitely a little even more of a boys club. Don't let that get to you. There will be people like that in every genre, and you just kind of have to tough it out so that the women behind us don't have to.
Amazing as always. Thank you. And Kathy, what about you?
I think for me as an Asian American woman, I just don't see myself like growing up. I didn't see myself in media. I didn't really see myself in these like a woman like me in those positions. And I think that was always like, and it still is one of the hardest things. Like, you know, we've progressed so much, but there still isn't like, you know, we don't have that many Asian American artists in music to begin with. Like Olivia Rodrigo was the first Asian American woman to hit #1. And that was literally this week. So it's kind of like ridiculous. And like for at least to me, I think just hard because I've always been very proud of my culture, of who I am, my background that's shaped who I am. And going into the music industry, it is a lot of, you know, men especially, but I don't get to see representation of myself. And sometimes it's really intimidating because you always think like, okay, well, there is also the stigma around like Asian women and we're kind of like more soft and submissive. And I really had to grow out of that growing up, and especially also going into the music industry and not being able to voice my opinion, voice the thoughts and ideas that I have, and being able to step up and kind of like what Liv just said, like just it's a very male dominated field, and just being able to see myself here, you know, that's what I want to do for future girls, not just Asian American, but just women in general. Like we're doing it so that the people later don't have to do it. And I think that's always the biggest thing, is seeing representation and like pushing more of that into the industry because we don't get that.
Absolutely. I had another question for all three of you. When trying to apply for jobs or internships in the music industry, what do you think the biggest hurdle to overcome was? And we can start with Katherine. Do you want to go?
Sure. I would say my biggest hurdle when applying was kind of, I would almost say like not knowing what I wanted to do. So I know when I went through my intro earlier, I said that I tried a lot of things. I think part of the reason I tried a lot of things was just because I knew I wanted to do music, but didn't know exactly what was available to me beyond some of the like careers that you see most often, like marketing, and like being an A&R. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do those. So in terms of just like overcoming that obstacle, I leaned on a lot of just like my peers, and then also people who were already like in the game, like already in the music industry and stuff like that. So I think it's important to have like mentors and also like look outside of what you traditionally think a mentor might be. Like it might not necessarily be someone who's further along in your career and or in their careers rather, and might be someone who is your peer who has a different perspective of looking at things, or who has a strength that maybe you don't have. Maybe there's someone who's like super outgoing, they're on top of like the resumes and applying for jobs and everything like that. Like those people can mentor you as well in terms of just like getting the skills that you need to get your resume looking good for different internships, and teaching you like, oh, I need to cater my cover letter to each different job that I apply to. Or they'll be the person that could be like, hey, I will read this for you because I really enjoy reading people's cover letters, and I enjoy like reading different resumes and stuff like that. So I think that just like mentorship is something that's really important, but looking at it from a perspective of like growing a relationship and networking within your peers as well.
Awesome. Definitely very true. Network, network, network. That's why we're all here. Olivia, how about you? What was your biggest hurdle trying to break into the music industry?
Ooh, I would say, well, at the time I was based in DC. I'm from Southern California, but I went to school in DC. And I guess I felt really like it was a roadblock for me that I wasn't able to take internships at major labels, because at the time, I don't know if they still are now, but at the time they were like full-time and not paid during the summer. So I couldn't afford to live in LA or New York and work full-time for free and work a job and whatever during the summer. So I really felt like I had to kind of create my own opportunities. So when I went to Car Park to try to get my first like music industry job, it was a small label in DC. I did a lot of research to try to find it. And I presented them so I reached out to them, like they weren't offering any internships or anything, but I said, here's who I am, here's what I can do. I'll work for you like 5 hours a week for free or whatever. I think it was like 5 to 10 that I did. And they emailed me back the same day and were like, can you come in tomorrow? So I met with them, and then they hired me the next day, and it just all kind of snowballed from there. So finding really creative ways to like create your own opportunities where they don't exist is absolutely crucial, because if I had just waited for like that major label opportunity to come to me, I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing now. And the most important thing is to just go for it, I guess. Search, be creative, go for it. And that's how I overcame what I saw was the hurdle of location for me.
Okay. Kathy, what about you?
I think it was a little bit of both what Liv and Catherine kind of mentioned. Like what Catherine mentioned, it, like knowing what you want to do in music, but like not really how. Like for me, I kind of mentioned it a little earlier, but like in high school, I decided to join this club called DECA, and I did like this competition. It was for sports entertainment marketing. It was like a competition, and that was kind of where I was like, okay, well, this is kind of like music, but it's not like what you think of like, oh, like you're not the artist, you're not kind of on stage. Like, at a younger age, I always thought like, what can you really do in music that's not like the performer itself? And going from there, that kind of like got my foot in the door. I'm like, okay, I'm coming up with these ideas, but I've never taken a class for it. Okay, so I'm like remembering the stuff that you see artists do, you know, like when you watch like say like The Weeknd, his storytelling, like through his music videos, like you follow along that storytelling, you intake so much knowledge that you don't really know you have, like all the time, constantly. Like we're always on our phones. I am on my phone literally 24/7. Like I the only time I'm not is like when I'm sleeping, basically. So knowing that you have this knowledge and taking it and like kind of sitting there maybe one day and you're like, okay, what do I know? You know, you have this so much knowledge. And I think a lot of the time the biggest obstacle is yourself, you know, not believing in yourself, not being able to put yourself out there, not thinking that you have the experience, the knowledge, like whatever it is, and kind of doubting yourself. And I think that sometimes is the biggest obstacle. And it's not necessarily external. A lot of the time it is internal things, and being able to believe in yourself and learn how to what your strengths are, what are your weaknesses. It's good to also know that, and taking those weaknesses and how do you grow, you know, because that's kind of the point is you, every day you want to be better than the person you are before. And sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's not, you know, you're not supposed to be like, you can't grow without feeling comfortable. You have to kind of step out of that. And for me, that was a lot of it, was like being internally, like the internal obstacle that I had with myself, being like first generation, and I didn't really know what to do. Like I didn't really have anyone kind of like, you know, well, this is how you go through college. I did a lot of this on my own, but now it's like for me, taking that and like wanting to help others, like my younger brother, my cousins, like just anyone who comes after me, like being able to help those who didn't have a path, because a lot of the times for first generation student, the obstacle is yourself.
Definitely.
So we have a ton of questions here. So I wanted to get to a couple of them. And this one really interests me, from Stephanie Landino. It's, what is a skill that people in the music industry overlook that is actually very necessary? And I just thought that was a very uniquely interesting question. And I think this time, Liv, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yes, sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, no worries. What is a skill that people in the music industry overlook that's actually very necessary?
Ooh, people skills, like being polite. I get a lot of like, because I also run a panel series through Amethyst Collab. Go follow us at Amethyst Collab. We have a lot of like, our panels are almost always all women from major labels. So a lot of time people will like see the name and then just like spam these women with requests, or like spam me even to connect them with these women. And if your first message, first of all, if you like follow up with me multiple times, that to me is like a little bit offensive, because it's like, whoa, slow down. Like I'm a person with my own life, and you like coming at me like that just doesn't help you. So just like very basic, like this sounds like obvious, but it's not, believe me. I think the number one thing that you need to do is just make sure you're like respectful when you reach out to other people. Networking is important, but sometimes if it can come off like very impolite, if you want to like demand somebody's time or just like refuse to stop like messaging them, things like that. It happens a lot more than you think, unfortunately. So like etiquette, proper like internet etiquette nowadays is definitely a huge thing that I think is important, and that people definitely overlook, because especially right now in COVID, like 90% of our networking, if not all of our networking, is via the internet, right? And now it's like even more so than LinkedIn. Sometimes you'll be networking on Instagram or Twitter. Social media networking is real and it's important, and you should be able to use it. But just using it properly in a way that's going to give the best impression of you is the biggest skill that you can have. So do not overlook that.
Kathy?
I kind of feel like that was a lot of what I was going to say is people skill, especially with Zoom. I think, let's see, what's another one that I think is a really big part? For me, it's a lot about storytelling. I think with music, for me, like growing up, that's how I got through, whether it was like the happy times, the sad times, the angry times, like everything. There's a song, there's some kind of playlist or something for you to listen to that helps you get through that. And like with that, that's such a big part, you know, like you create these stories inside of your head. So I think that is a very big asset. And like, again, just taking what you know, like how you consume music is how, maybe not the exact same way someone else does, but it is a similar process. And I think that's something that I've really like realized that I love about music is the storytelling aspect of it.
I love that too. That's amazing. All right, Katherine.
Well, I feel like Liv and Kathy gave like such good answers. They're definitely like things that I would say myself. I guess similar to what both of them said earlier is just communication in general, especially written communication, I would say. Like when you're at the point where you're having to interface with clients a lot, especially just like email communication, understanding that a lot of times, sometimes people don't read your whole email, which irritates me to no end, but I definitely try to set myself up for success in emails as much as I can by keeping them brief and also keeping them so that if there's something specific that I want or I think needs to happen, like if I need to set up a call or if I'm like wanting to meet with someone, I'll just be like, oh, I know you might have a lot going on. Is there any way that you'd be able to meet Wednesday or Thursday between these times so that at least they could just be like, I can't do Wednesday, I can't do Thursday, but I can do next Monday. Or they could just be like, I'm not interested. But at least like you're setting it up so that they will hopefully answer you either way and read your whole email. Cause that's one thing, like people don't read at all. It grinds my gears a little bit, but people don't read.
You know what? I'm gonna interject on that for a second, and just so everybody knows, I also have a full-time job in the music industry at one of the talent agencies. But speaking to all of those points, the biggest thing that I think is overlooked is learning how to write a proper email, like from the get.
Yeah.
Spend your time learning how to write a short, simple, explanatory email. It will become your best friend. It just, I cannot stress it enough, because when I get an email that has more than 3 paragraphs of explanation, unless it's got like some big type of budget attached to it, I'm looking at it like, who has the time?
Yeah.
Honestly, more than like 6 sentences, I'm not reading it. To be honest with you, 2 sentence, 2 sentence, 2 sentence done. And if you want a little more on this, shameless plug here on Amethyst, we just posted a guide on how to end your emails too. So saying something like thanks in advance actually isn't as nice as you think it is, because that assumes that you're going to get a piece of this person's time. So we posted like some great alternate email endings that are, you know, the most respectful as possible. And we're going to be posting more on like literally email templates. So get into that. But Shelby, so right.
And that's also not to say that there is a tone of respect that you should also expect back from people. If somebody is incredibly rude to you back, that is also not all right either. Like, know your boundaries and understand what a professional exchange looks like and what one doesn't. But just be aware, you know, you're coming in, you're new, you're going to face some flack, but knowing how to write that email is going to make, I once had somebody literally respond to me and start mentoring me because he said, you're the first person who's ever come to me and said, I read a specific article of yours and it made me want to ask you and reach out, like, to talk to you about your future. So like, be specific, be simple, be sweet. But yeah, I'm going to let Christina go ahead and take it. And I think we've got more questions coming through. Oh, Sydney. We'll get to you guys, we promise.
For everyone, I keep muting myself. It's just habit. My bad. Anyways, so unfortunately, Liz for media and PR. Did I freeze or no?
You're good.
No, you're good.
Okay, sorry. I think I saw someone freeze. Liz for media and PR, she's having really bad internet troubles, so she won't be able to join us tonight. Please check out 3 Brand Media if you have the time. I'll link it in a sec. But she'll probably be joining us sometime in the future when we can do a more media PR focused networking event. Did we want to take it to breakout rooms?
Yeah, let's do. I think we should ask one more question and then we take it to breakout rooms. Yeah.
Let's peep. Did you have any, Shelby? I think.
Yeah, give me 1 second. My chat just got totally backed up. Sorry, you guys. this is something that a lot of people have been asking is, what is the suggestion for how an artist should build out their team? A few people have asked this in a couple different ways, like who should you reach out to first if you can't afford a team? What are your options type thing? And I think, Liv, I kind of want to start with you with that one.
Yeah, I get asked this a lot in like the artist consulting that I do. And the number one thing I tell artists is if you're not generating enough revenue to pay a team, you probably don't need one yet, right? So be careful. A lot of people will come to you wanting XYZ amount of money, things like that. And just, be careful, try to do as much as you can yourself so that you're not like giving away your only stream of revenue in the beginning. Don't sign away your money before it gets to you. That's what I always tell people. But I think the first thing that you should look into, if you're an independent artist who wants to stay independent, it's very different from like an independent artist who wants to get signed to a label. If you are wanting to stay independent for the time being, I would look into marketing help, right? So looking at yourself the way that a label would look at you, what's the first thing they're going to do for you? It's an A&R and a marketing rep, right? So you want to do that for yourself. Be your own A&R, first of all, like, what kind of producers you like and songwriters you like, set that up. And then get somebody who's like a marketing expert. And of course, I might be a little biased, but I would always say like leaning into social media. And the great thing about social media is this is something you don't even need in the beginning phases to pay someone to do, right? Until you get too big to manage your own socials. There's a lot of free info on social media online, and especially for artists. There's just so much info for artists' social media online. I would definitely suggest using that because social media is like a free promotion service, essentially. You can find ways to like hack the algorithm without ever spending $1 on ads. So don't overlook anything. I know a lot of people say like, oh, I don't want to go on TikTok, it's so corny. But you're missing an entire free stream of promotion for yourself. So get on every single platform and don't be afraid of new social media. A lot of people were like afraid of fleets, but now I try to explain to people that they have a higher engagement rate than Instagram stories. So don't be afraid to dive into new social media platforms. Do as much as you can yourself, but when you do want to build your team, marketing, management, and then the rest is my opinion.
Amazing, thank you. Katherine, from the brand, I want to hear this from the branding side. From
the branding side, I feel like it's tougher because I don't like interact so much with artists directly. It's more so in the context of a festival or a show. But I would have to say, though, what Olivia said about investing in marketing would probably be like the biggest place to start as an artist. And also just making sure that you have a product to market or a process that you want to market as well. Because I think a lot of times what might cripple people is thinking that like, oh, I don't really like, I just need to be on here and I need to be showing people things and everyone needs to know what I'm eating for breakfast every day. And it's like, you might be eating a really boring breakfast and no one cares. However, you might have a really interesting process for writing a song, or you might have a really interesting process about how you're making your music videos. I have a friend of mine who has made music videos, basically like made them himself because he has experience like working on music videos, and recruited just like friends from our friend group to help him and to shoot everything and run the sets and everything like that. But he spent like $1,000 a video, which in the grand scheme of things is like not a lot of money, but the videos that he made are like, they're very good. They tell a really great story. And he kind of has shaped it into like, this is what my brand is, like telling my story in these ways, and talking about like how he puts all of those things together and how he brings all of those things together. Because like, him posting about breakfast, like no one cares. His breakfast is boring. But the way that he tells his story and the way that he was able to make music videos with like $1,000 budget is very, very interesting. And so that's what he's focused on a lot in his marketing.
I'm going to speak directly to that and say, if anybody has seen Pink Sweat's Doritos or Pink Sweat's Fruity Pebbles cooking show thing that he did, those were two brilliant pieces of media that came out of that had nothing to do with his music, but he tied it was brilliant. It was very well done. So if you guys like Google him and look up those things, you'll kind of see, I think, a lot of what Katherine's talking about, where you make things interesting and tie into your product and what you're selling as an artist in a lot of ways. Kathy.
Okay, I don't think I have the most expertise to answer this question, but I think for me, again, a little biased because of the marketing. I do marketing, so I definitely think that is a good place to start, especially with Katherine saying storytelling. That is such a major part. Find your brand, find who you are, who, like, what's special about you, and like, how do you project that? And also networking. All the people who are in this chat right now, the people filling out the sheet, connect with each other, find each other, especially if you don't have the experience, you don't know where to start. Okay, we'll connect with one of these artists, these musicians, and work together and go from there. Like, it doesn't have to be like stepping out and getting a label job. It doesn't have to be that. Find those small ones. Get your, find what works for you. Find that experience that you might be looking for, because with experience comes knowledge, and like, whether it's small or big, knowledge is knowledge, and that itself is valuable.
Well, I want to thank all three of you for being on here today, for being so open and honest and answering all these great questions. I'm going to toss it back over to Christina.
Yes. For a second, I thought I was muted again. Thank you so much. You guys are lifesavers. We're so happy that we got to do this event with you, and that you have so much to share. And I know a lot of people here just want to learn and want to figure out how they can achieve their dreams in this industry, especially during such a difficult time. So we just really appreciate it. And we appreciate everyone who came, everyone who signed up. And I believe we'll be starting the breakout rooms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So we are going to have rooms broken